A federal court just destroyed Donald Trump's master plan to rig the 2026 midterm elections, and even better, it looks like this vile plan didn't just fail, it backfired majorly. Get some bubbly on hand, everybody. I'm David Reddish. Welcome to Occupy Democrats. Even with the big election wins last week, all eyes in America have fixated on the 2026 midterm elections as a chance for Democrats to retake one or both chambers of Congress and put a check on Donald Trump's grabs for authoritarian power. Not to mention, investigate and punish him for his crimes. Trump, as you will recall, is terrified of that possibility and therefore began pressuring Republican governors in red states to redraw congressional maps, which is of dubious legality given that this is not a census year. Trump wants maps redrawn so as to create a permanent Republican majority, or at least give the Democrats such a thin margin of victory they can't get anything done. Some of those redistricting efforts, like those in Indiana or Kansas, have stalled. One that moved forward, however, was that of Texas. Here's a rundown.
Republicans in Texas currently hold 25 of the state's 38 congressional seats. The new map ups the total they could win to 30.
Texas Republicans are going all out. They're trying to fulfill Donald Trump's goal of flipping 5 Democratic-held seats.
The GOP had to dramatically alter several North Texas districts to do so. District 33, which is currently represented by Democrat Mark Vesey, has been moved out of Tarrant County completely. District 32, currently anchored in Dallas and represented by Democrat Julie Johnson, would be reshaped to favor Republicans by shifting its boundary lines and picking up parts of Rockwall County.
They've extended some of the districts out into East Texas and into West Texas, where you have more reliable Republican voting bases, meaning that the overall weight of the Dallas-Fort Worth area will be lower.
Political science professor Mark Jones says the proposed map would likely cut the number of Democrat members of Congress representing North Texas from 3 down to 1 or 2. But Democrats say this map is a result of racially motivated gerrymandering at the request of the president.
It's the pathway to authoritarianism. This is racism. It is manipulation. It's a civil rights travesty.
Now, if all that sounds dire and unfair, well, that's because it is. But don't despair just yet. There's a twist coming. The effort by the Trump White House and GOP governors like Greg Abbott also prompted Democratic governors in several states, including California's Gavin Newsom, to launch their own gerrymandering efforts to counterbalance any Republican pickups in red states. Newsom scored a major political triumph last week when voters approved Prop 50, which will allow Democrats to pick up a projected 5 extra seats in the state. And if that sounds like a relief, I'm happy to say we have even better news now. Not only is Democratic pushback winning, but a federal court just overruled Greg Abbott's plan in Texas. Multiple outlets, including Politico, now report that an appellate court has thrown out Greg Abbott's new congressional map for Texans, ordering the governor to revert back to the previous map that was drawn in 2021 in accordance with usual practice. That is, maps are generally only redrawn following a national census. An appeals court ruled 2-1 that the new map is unconstitutional because it was race-based. In other words, designed to marginalize people of color in Texas. Quote, the map ultimately passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, the 2025 map, achieved all but one of the racial objectives that the Department of Justice demanded, close quote. U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Brown, a Galveston-based Trump appointee, wrote for the panel majority. Now, granted, Republicans are probably going to try and appeal the case to the Supreme Court, though it remains unclear if the High Court would even hear the case at all. Furthermore, doing so could conflict with several other cases on the docket, including one ruling on provisions of the Civil Rights Act. And even if the Supremes do hear the case, it's not clear that they could put the new districts into play in time for midterms next year. That depends on a host of other factors, including the current schedule for the court. But best of all, while California's attempt to counterbalance Texas's redistricting is also facing court challenges, Gavin Newsom had the good sense to follow the rules, going to voters to approve the move and not following racially motivated redistricting under pressure from the president, a flagrant abuse of presidential power. So, in sum, suddenly the midterm elections are looking even brighter for Democrats. You know, Ronald Reagan used to call this kind of win the Big Mo, Mo being short for momentum. Democrats look like they're about to mount a massive comeback. And if you doubt me, remember, I'm queer. I know a big Mo when I see one. This is Occupy Democrats.